49ers fans, welcome to the first ever 49ers mailbag with your host, Rob Schuh. Super excited to be here today. Very excited to launch this new show. It is only possible with 49ers fans like yourself. So thank you, first and foremost. Now let's kick this damn thing off the right way, making sure that I get paid, because first and foremost, that is the most important thing. We've got a quick word from our national sponsor. You're going to want to stick around for this. Yeah, that's right. We got sponsored here before we even launched the first show, because that's how Rob Schuh rolls. Today's 49ers mailbag with your host, Rob Schuh, is brought to you by Folgers Instant Coffee Crystals. In the morning, you're a sleepyhead. Folgers Instant Coffee Crystals. Best enjoyed lukewarm, because really, you don't want to taste it. Folgers Classic Roast Instant Coffee Crystals. Yeah, we still make this shit. Welcome back to the mailbag. Big thanks to our sponsors, Folgers Coffee. Again, my name is Rob Schuh. You may have seen me over on Grant Cohn's channel, or maybe not. Maybe you're like, who the hell is this dude? Either way, here you are, and I'm guessing that you care more about hearing 49er stuff than you do any random facts about me. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And if you decide you want to know anything about me, put it in your mailbag submissions for the next show and send them to 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. Jumping right into the first question, because we want to get sort of a live feel to this, even though it's a pre-recorded show, trying to do one take. First question, shout out to our first email submission by Not Your Average Sports Kid. Not Your Average Sports Kid, what's up, man? His question is, what are your thoughts on Jimmy's current mindset? That's a good question. My answer is good, not great. And the reason I say that is what I see so far are all positive signs that things are trending in the right direction. Jimmy was smiling and joking, seemed more in control during that press conference. I'm sure you guys all saw that. Confidence does seem to be trending in that positive direction. I'm just not confident that it's going to stay there when he hits some adversity, whether that's the first hit down on his lower legs, or whether that is a loss, whether that is a muscle strain, whatever it may be. When that adversity hits, I don't know what's going to happen. But for now, it's encouraging. What I saw last year was a shell of Jimmy's former self. He was clearly uncomfortable in front of the cameras, and the 49ers were struggling, so it didn't get any better. The pressure just built. The magical season, the good vibes of 2019 made way to a really disastrous season in 2020, and it clearly broke Jimmy's confidence. Jimmy strikes me as a guy's guy, someone who loves the locker room vibe of being a football player. And in 2019, I read stories about how the guys were hanging out together. They were going to softball games to watch the equipment people play softball, drinking beers in the stands, really getting some bonding going. And like so many other things in all of our lives, 2020 stole most of the fun from the locker room. It took away all those things that the 49ers were doing that gave them that magical run in 2019. So perhaps a return to more normalcy in the world will bring some of that fun back to this year's 49ers. I also put a lot of the responsibility onto Kyle Shanahan. I believe that Kyle really needs to improve in the area of boosting his quarterback's confidence. I know he's a believer in tough coaching because he continually reminds us of that. But he also needs to be a believer in the mental health to a greater degree than what he has shown in the past, because it truly is that confidence and mental health within the quarterback room that I'm most concerned about this year. To this point, from what I've observed, Kyle is not strong in that area. Perhaps he fails to acknowledge the importance of maintaining a player's confidence, or he may feel that that's not his responsibility. These are professional, grown men. They should handle that on their own. And to some extent, that's fair. But to another extent, you are the coach. You are there to help them. These are young men. These are not fully formed individuals. These are young men that are growing up, that are experiencing life in many ways for the first time. And so someone who is older and wiser, such as a coach, can offer that assistance, can really help in building a player's confidence. And I think we've seen several examples to where Kyle is just not strong in that area. And I do think that oftentimes people fail to realize the impact that their actions will have on another human being. And this is true in all facets of life. This is not just unique to football. It goes for all people out there on Twitter, YouTube. Just realize that the way that you act or interact with other people, even if you're trying to come across as super sarcastic, I know I try to do that myself, it's going to have a significant impact on them in real life sometimes. Oftentimes, it's just going to roll right off them, water off a duck's back. However, you never know what mental mindset someone is in at that particular moment in their lives. So I just want to encourage people to think about that when you're interacting with others. Even if you think it's in a positive way, take the other person's potential mindset into account. I'm going to quote one of the great philosophers of the late 80s, Bill S. Preston, Esquire, be excellent to each other. All right, question number 2. This question comes from Josh M., submitted through the 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. How many games will Jimmy play this year? That's a big question, right? That's the $1 million question. That's a $25 million question, actually. So here's my bold prediction about Jimmy. I think we see a reversion to the norm for Jimmy. I predict, this is my bold prediction, Jimmy's going to start 16 games this year, missing 1 game to injury. It's going to be during one of the tougher stretches of the 49ers schedule. It's going to come when some of those games are closer together, a little more prone to injury. We have our bye week early this season, so there's going to be a stretch of games where travel's a lot, the miles accrue, the games are closer together, not enough time to recover. And I think that that's where Jimmy's going to slip in one miss this season. I know a lot of you are already yelling at your screen, Jimmy's going to miss the entire season after week 3. Forget about that. Jimmy spent time getting his body right this offseason. The average NFL player misses 2 games. So if he misses 2 games, don't give him any grief. That's the average within the NFL. 2 games each season, especially as we creep up to 17 games in the year. So I'm saying he's going to hit 16. Now, the second part of this is, will Lance play at all, and if so, when? That's the second part of the question that Josh wanted to answer. So in the second part of the question, yes, I believe that Lance is going to play, and I believe he's going to start fairly early in the season. I believe somewhere around week 5, week 6, you're going to start seeing Lance with specific packages coming into the game. I don't think you're going to see one play at a time like a Taysom Hill package. I don't think it's going to be a true wildcat. I think you will see scaled down versions of Kyle's offense with a bit more running element to them, but small packages of plays where it gives Trey a chance to come in, potentially in the red zone, and put together a string of good plays, build some positive momentum as we move forward. And this is my second bold prediction, because I did say that Jimmy's going to miss 1 game. And so I'm sure you're saying, well, when is Lance going to jump in? My bold prediction of the game that is mixed is that it's not going to be Trey that comes in for that 1 game. I believe it's actually going to be Josh Rosen to come in for that lone start. And the reason I say this, and it's just a guess, there's no inside information here, but it's based on logic. It's based on the logic that the top priority for the 49ers is ensuring that Trey Lance has a successful career. They spent a great deal of draft capital in order to bring him to the team, and you can't allow him to fail before that 2023 draft hits. So it's imperative that you prop him up for success. And if he's not ready when Jimmy gets injured, putting him in too early for a full game would be a good way to damage his confidence. Spoke about the importance of confidence just a moment ago. So I think we're going to stick with the idea that in building Trey's confidence, we put in Josh to start that game, allow him to fight through the awkwardness of jumping in to start, because it's not so essential that Josh is a successful career player for the 49ers. If he turns out to be a career backup, that would be fantastic. If he turns into trade bait, that would be even better. But if he fails, it's not the end of the world. I certainly am rooting for Josh Rosen's success, but it will not be the catastrophe that would be a bad game from Trey Lance. All right, jumping into question number 3. This question comes from Carl. Carl F. Carl, I can't tell if you're mad or not. I really hate not knowing what mindset Carl was in when he was writing this. Like, is he wildly yelling at the computer as he types it mad? Or is it like this decision is laughable and he's sort of rolling his eyes and shaking his head with disgust as he writes? You tell me what you thought. Either way, Carl, leave me a comment here to fill us in. Intriguing minds want to know. Back to his questions. Here it is. I'm going to try it both ways. Yelling and a little bit sarcastic and whatnot. Who are the nitwits in this organization that participated in the decisions to pass on Tom Brady last year? I want to know. That could be the angry version. That's sort of where my gut goes on that, because you'd be angry that you passed up on the GOAT. And that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Or it could be like, who are the nitwits in the organization that participated in the decision to pass on Tom Brady last year? Equal disgust, just not as much anger. I'm fine either way. But really, the answer to the question is I'm with you, Carl. I am both angry and disgusted at that decision to pass on Tom Brady, mainly because I'm a man who loves storylines. And the storyline of Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, and believe me, it pains me to say that. It really does, because I'm a huge Montana fan, as you can probably tell. And for the longest time, I fought off the fact that the GOAT argument wasn't fair. At this point, I have to give the slight edge to Tom Brady. I still think it's not the same argument. You're talking about different eras. You couldn't compare Johnny Unitas to Tom Brady, so just stop it. But I acknowledge Tom Brady, what he's done has never been done by anyone else. Therefore, I'm comfortable giving him the GOAT title. And I do think we should have brought him in. I do think the storyline would have been amazing. Bring home the Bay Area kid. Bring him back for a final run. Let him retire as a 49er the way he wanted to. Do I think he could have overcome everything that happened in 2020? No, I do not. I do not think Tom Brady would have won a Super Bowl with the 49ers last year. I think he would have had a very good shot of doing it this year after the injuries, but other than exploring the butterfly effect and what bringing in Tom Brady may or may not have done on all the injuries that happened, if we assume all the injuries still occur in 2020, all you're doing is replacing Jimmy with Tom Brady, I think Tom Brady gets destroyed through interior pressure the same way that Jimmy did. That's the way I got to go with it. I still wish that they had brought him in, and I'm a Jimmy fan. It's not because of any ill will towards Jimmy Garoppolo. I just love a good storyline. Tom Brady coming home to play for his childhood team. Too good to pass up for me. Question number 4. This one comes from James K. What's up, James? James asks, why wouldn't the front office slash Jimmy's insane $25 million cap hit by at least 66%, no matter what happens in training camp? Okay. James also appears to be upset. And let's be honest, can you blame any 49ers fan from being upset about last year or about that $25 million contract for that reason? But the answer to this is I don't think that they can. And the reason that they cannot is leverage. Leverage is the key. Who has the leverage right now? The 49ers have two options. They can pay Jimmy what they owe him, or they can cut him. On the other hand, in order to redo the contract, they would need to get Jimmy to agree to a pay cut. And that wouldn't make any sense from Jimmy's perspective. He is guaranteed to make $25 million this year. And next year, he has a good contract. And if they're going to cut him anyway, then he's going to have to renegotiate with whoever his new team is. Therefore, why would he take his $25 million guaranteed, which the Niners are going to have to pay to him regardless of what happens, regardless of how many games he plays in, regardless of whether he starts or not? Why would he agree to spread that out over 2 years or simply take a reduction? He knows that the 49ers are unlikely to cut him because that would leave them in a precarious quarterback situation. Instead, he has all the leverage. He plays this year. He intends to ball out and then get paid in 2022 by another team or play well enough to warrant the 2022 salary from the 49ers. And that changes the question of who has the leverage in 2022. Pardon me. In 2022, if Jimmy had a bad year, then he gets cut or traded for minimal return, like a 6th or a 7th rounder, or Jimmy agrees to renegotiate his deal with the 49ers. Certainly, if he's traded, he's going to need to renegotiate to a new deal with the team that trades for him. That's if he has a bad year. He's then going to need to accept the fact that he's no longer going to be paid like a starting quarterback, that things will have to change significantly. And I think in that scenario, if he played poorly, the most likely outcome would just be a simple cut. I don't think you're going to have too many teams lining up to give away draft picks for someone that doesn't have a phenomenal season and has a track record of injury. If he has a great year, now both parties have leverage, and that's a best case scenario for the 49ers. That's back to Joe Montana and Steve Young on the same roster and only room for one of them, so you trade one to another team, recoup some serious draft picks in return, and move forward from there. Or play with Jimmy under contract for 2022 and have 2 starting caliber quarterbacks on the roster. I think it's a win-win in that scenario. That's what I'm predicting. Jimmy has a good year this year. He balls out. Trey only plays in packages. Jimmy takes us deep into the playoffs, possibly for a Super Bowl victory. And we're facing this conundrum at the start of 2022. A quality problem to have. All right. Question number 5. This is the last question, and it comes from Elisha S. Elisha, let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I assume it's maybe Eli. Let me know. He submitted it to 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. I apologize in advance if I did mispronounce it. My last name is Schuh, S-C-H-U-H. You can only imagine what phone calls from telemarketers sounded like. Is Mr. Schuh there? Mr. Schuh. Schuh? I mean, who thinks someone's name is Schuh? Schuh, people! Schuh. Unbelievable. Anyway, question is, do you think 49ers receiving core is going to stay healthy this year? And if not, who's going to step up? This is a great question, Eli, because it's already come to fruition. We get the report from Grant yesterday of who was injured at 49ers practice. Lo and behold, it's everyone. Everyone is injured, especially the wide receivers. It's unbelievable. It's week 2 of OTAs. OTAs. It's a little bit frustrating. I'm going to take a breath. Woosah. Woosah. Get myself in my right mindset. The reality is, I believe that these wide receivers are held back. There's a precautionary method at this point. Precautionary measure. Fingers crossed that that's the case, but it sure seems like soft tissue injuries are a problem for Debo. That's oftentimes an issue for people with tree trunks for legs like he has. I think it is just the sheer size of the muscles on the quad and the get off that you can have with that is prone to high torque, right? Where the foot plants in the ground, you put some significant torque into the leg, and the muscle is then yanked. And that's where you get, so I'm not a doctor. People may think that I'm a doctor. I may look like a doctor when I put on my nice shirt on Grant's show. In the chat, I saw people thinking I was a doctor. At one of my old jobs, people had a nickname for me, Dr. Schuh. So I'll take it. I'm not a doctor. I have no idea if that's the cause of the muscles. I'm just saying that's what it seems like to me, that people with those big tree trunk style legs oftentimes are subject to tight hammies or quad pulls, if you will. Who's going to step up? Man, I hope it's Julio. Julio! Julio! Somebody bring him in. John, Kyle, we need Julio. We need to bring in the depth in this room. We need to make sure that when people go down, we've got enough pass catchers out there. But if it's not Julio, I honestly don't know who it will be. I think that Richie James Jr. shows flashes of greatness. I don't trust him for extended periods within the season. Travis Benjamin, been out of football for a full year. Mohamed Sanu looked like the best player on the field the other day. Now, my question is that a representation of Mohamed Sanu in a return to excellence this year? Or, as evidenced with his inability to stay on the squad last year, is he still that player who isn't that talented, but everyone around him at the practice yesterday was even worse? And so is that more of a, hey, this is a real concern for the depth in our wide receiver room, because if we lose our top two, our best option is Mohamed Sanu, and everyone below him is a significant step down. It's very concerning to me. I feel like we need depth at that position, whether it is Julio Jones or not. When I hear that the Rams and the Seahawks are making a push to get Julio Jones, to me, it becomes much more imperative that we take the extra push and make it, get the deal done. Now, could that be the Atlanta Falcons putting out the news that, hey, the Rams and the Seahawks are in, huh, Niners? Maybe want to up that ante a little bit, give us an extra pick? Maybe. But just the thought of DK Metcalf and Julio Jones on either side of the field against our cornerbacks and a lack of depth in our secondary gives me nightmares. So 49ers, John Lynch, please make this happen. I don't think the cost is going to be too high, and the reward would be huge. Huge. All right. That's the end of the mailbag, man. I'm super excited that you guys were able to join me today. If you did, hit the subscribe, hit the like button. There's going to be more of this. It's going to be coming back. Put your emails in for the next week's show. Best email goes on with me, and Grant and I will discuss the question live on his show. Fridays at 11 a.m. is a regularly scheduled time. Put your emails in, 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. Also want to plug the All 49ers roundtable that happens with Grant on Wednesdays typically. Jump on there with Jack Hammer, some of the other guys. It's a fantastic show. Love it. That's pretty much it for the mailbag. Thanks to Carl, Not Your Average Sports Kid, everybody for their submissions. We had... Who did we have in? We had Josh. Big ups to Josh. Love that. He's got a couple of questions, and I'm putting that in next week. It was dope. Got Eli in there. It's been a fantastic week. Super excited to put this out. Sorry if it's a rough cut, but I want this to be a live vibe to it, man. I want you to feel like you're in the room here with me, except you're not, because I'm not wearing any pants. So you can't actually be in the same room, because then it would be awkward. But here you are, talking to me one-to-one. So put your questions in. Send a video of yourself if you want to. I'll throw your video in here, clip it into the sequence, and then it'll be like we're back and forth. So if you're upset, dejected, or just a rabid 49ers fan, thirsty for answers, hit me up. Until the next time, 49ers fans, peace.